I'm going to call the February Capital Program Committee meeting to order. Change of the name of this committee has changed. It's the Capital Program Committee. We lost one letter. But who is speaking for the public comment period?
I am
Thank
Elizabeth
you.
King.
Do we have members of the public that are here to provide comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, good afternoon. We have a total of 8 members from the public speaking today. We have 5 in person and 3 virtual.
Thank you.
As a reminder, I'd like to remind all public speakers to adhere to the MTA rules of conduct and decorum. I would also like to remind the speakers that in the interest of time and fairness to all speakers, we limit everyone to 2 minutes. Please be aware that a warning beep will remind you when there is 30 seconds left for you to conclude your comments. Thank you. The first speaker will be Charlton D'Souza. Following Mr. D'Souza will be Jason Anthony.
Welcome, Mr. D'Souza. Is Mr. D'Souza present?
We'll move on to Mr. Jason Anthony.
Here he is.
He's coming.
Mr. D'Souza has made an entrance.
All right,
you.
guys.
Mr.
Sorry,
D'Souza.
I was just introducing our new vice president, Fatima Barab, around and showing her. But what I need to say to you guys with Capital, what's going on? We need security cameras in the subway, trains, subway cars. I know you can't put the cameras inside the legacy cars, but what about the R160s? They can be installed in there. SEPTA has cameras in all of their old legacy cars. So why can New York City Transit do that? And I actually took a trip to Washington, D.C. about 2 weeks ago, and I spoke to elected officials in D.C. about adding TSA security agents to the subway system. And the TSA actually has a device where they can post it by the turnstiles. It's a device that scans automatically for weapons without having for a person to be physically searched. As they pass through, the detector can scan up to 10 people at a time. And this is technology that's being used in international countries. I think you should look at that. And some of the things we spoke about with the electeds in DC was about New York City Transit closing certain entrances at certain times. You guys have so many mezzanines and exits open that that's a danger where anyone can rape someone, rob someone, cut them up, slice them up, and no one would know because it's so far from a station agent. So, a lot of the progressive elected officials have said, oh, we don't want police, we don't want this. So I'm trying to work with them as well. I've been talking to AOC staff. So we're trying to come up with some more solutions to help you guys. All right? So that's all I have to say. And please, Mr. Chairman, fix the Hollis Railroad Station. And please give us the Atlantic ticket, unlimited pass. Let us use it at Penn Station overnight. People are having to pay an extra $5, so work with us. All right? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jason Anthony.
Jason Anthony from Amazon Labor Union. Hey, Jano. Okay, this is not the safety committee. This is construction and development. If you want to talk about Hollis, let's talk about East New York. That is closer to my neck of the woods. That station is so abandoned that it's so disgraceful that I could see I could see horrible things happening in there. Let's talk about 6th Avenue on the Canarsie line. That station was promised to be rehabilitated as part of the Canarsie line rehabilitation tube. What happened to it? I was there this past weekend. As a matter of fact, Friday night. That station alone is, if you compare it to Chambers Street on the J and the C, you have a single station. It's so disgraceful. It is time to invest in stations that are in disrepair. Not invest in exclusive communities like Southeast Queens. Let's be more inclusive, shall we? I'll see you guys in finance.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Alita Dupree, followed by Christopher Greif.
Thank you, Chair Jano, Lieber, and members. Alita Dupree, for the record, she and her. It's good to be back with you. Jano, congratulations on being the new permanent chair and CEO. We got a lot of work to do. So as I talk about capital, it means a lot of things. And it's not just about buying new subway cars, though I like that. But definitely, as I say in many of these meetings, about accessibility. And the longer projects take, the more they cost, which is why I like the idea of getting work done sooner than later, because it's hard when I climb out of the deep subway station sometimes. So we got to continue our focus on ADA, and that is a hallmark of equity. But capital isn't just about building big things. Don't get me wrong, I love big signature projects, but it's about information technology, wayfinding, signage, and Omni, and not just the apps and the fare gate equipment, but all the back end structures that take place where we can move the money digitally. Because it's dangerous having money floating around on the system, and anybody can get a payment card. You can even get one in a drugstore. And as I've talked about renewable energy, could MTA be a power company? I think MTA already is, with the solar panels at Coney Island and transmission systems on our portion of the New Haven line. We can make some renewable energy to help us out in our goals of being more sustainable and resilient. I'll have to send you an email sometime with some more ideas. But thank you. I look forward to you talking about capital work. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Christopher Greif.
Good afternoon. I'm Christopher D. Greif, and as I said, I am the New York City Transit Riders Council member and actor. I'm here to remind that since we are talking about capital, we need to remind that when we are working at stations, let's also make sure that station humps that's near the conductor's position or the front of the train that has a little even to make it easy for wheelchairs and walkers. Also, if we're looking at stations like I would say on the Brighton line or other stations around other lines, we can also look at ramps as well. There are certain stations, doesn't have to be an elevator line, but can be also a railroad line that can also build ramps that will save us money, saves us to concern of building elevators. Are very hard sometimes to build an elevator. And yes, there are very hard times to build a ramp inside indoor stations. But we have to look at everything, not just saying no, not saying yes, but double check. Let's check how can we build it. I really need to see that more often in all stations. And like example, Neck Row Station on the Q train. Manhattan side has plenty of room to build a ramp. Let's see what can we do there. This is up on Gravesend. This is Neck Road on the Q. On the Dyer Avenue line, since part of it's a railroad line, we should be building ramps over there as well. Elevators are very good as well, but ramps can also make it easier for a customer to go down and easy access to the train, or access to the street level. And I agree with our other colleagues. We need cameras everywhere. But with the R211s getting the cameras now, let's see if we can also add a camera on the R179s. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going back to our in-person list. The next speaker is Omar Vera, followed by, I'm sorry, the next speaker actually is Fatima Bariab, followed by Omar Vera.
Good afternoon. My name is Fatima Bariab. Today is my first day as the Vice President of Passengers United. I am representing leadership and recruitment for this nonprofit, and I'm learning the ropes. I'm learning about this new world of transit, everything that happens behind the scenes. It's very interesting, all the work that goes in, and seeing all the different segments that come together to make New York City safe, especially for people who take the MTA and mass transit. As a woman, as a lifelong New Yorker, I feel like, especially after the pandemic, ridership has been low because of the safety concerns, and my interest in speaking in this committee particularly has been to advocate for safety, especially because as the warmer months come, sexual harassment increases, crime increases, and I think it's important that we invest in security cameras and make sure that the subway cars are properly patrolled. I'm looking forward to continuing my discussions with you guys and learning more about the MTA and how everything works. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Omar Vera.
Good afternoon, CPOT Committee. Welcome to this edition, February edition of your meeting. First of all, congratulations on the making the 4 lines 170th Street Station fully ADA accessible. I noticed that this morning, like on one of the screens, while getting off at Bowling Green. That was really good. Second, I'm looking forward to writing the LIRR East Side Access at the end of this year. It's long overdue. We've been waiting for this for, I guess, over a decade or so, but it's finally coming. Hooray. Third, I would like to also know, since the governor pulled the plug on the AirTrain LaGuardia project back in October or so, in the autumn, I think we should finally consider making plans to extending the N&W from Ditmars Boulevard to the airport. I recommended splitting the line in 2 eventually so the W can serve the Marine Air Terminal, because since it's lesser used, and then the N, which is the more main service, could use all other terminals at LaGuardia. We've been waiting for that, since we don't really have a direct subway to air transfer. We have via buses, we have the AirTrain at JFK, but we don't really have a direct rail, subway rail to the plane connection. I think this will finally do it. So will you at least consider it? Let the state know and let the Port Authority know that hopefully we can suggest extending the N&W to the airport, because I'll really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and have a good one.
Thank you. Our next speaker is our last virtual speaker, Andy Pollock.
Good afternoon. My name is Andy Pollock. I am a member of Passengers United. So I was supposed to speak last month, but I received a phone call regarding a cousin of mine who passed away. So that was more of an urgent matter. So what was I going to talk about in January originally? Well, now is the right time to finally think about installing the elevator I have been talking about for many years at the 7th Avenue station along the B, D, and E line in Midtown. Anybody remember Elijah Goodson? Anybody remember what happened 2 hours ago with all the mothers who came on the New York City meeting who had baby strollers? I'm speaking for all of them today. because this is their moment. This elevator has been long overdue, and now is the time to think about discussing it. I have another issue at Mineola I like to discuss, and that is Willis Avenue. I was actually at New Hyde Park a few months ago, and it's a beautiful underground area. There's actually a safe place for me to walk along New Hyde Park Road. But what happened with Willis Avenue and Mineola? Why isn't there a safe place for pedestrians to cross? And I'm thinking about taking a look at it myself next week, because that's very dangerous. Why can't pedestrians safely walk underneath the bridge in Mineola? I don't understand that. And also, I agree with what Omar said. The subway should be extended for LaGuardia. Hopefully, we can have discussions about the air train in the future. But that's all I got to say. So I'm going to conclude my remarks, and I expect to speak to you all finance within the next hour.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Murray Bowden.
It's a little difficult to summarize what's been going on, but let me give it a shot. The federal government announced this week that they're going to permit adaptive headlights in automobiles. That means headlights that go up and down and adjust automatically. A couple problems with that. One, it's technology being available in Europe for the last 10 years, and if your car was in the United States, it has the technology but not turned on. And the other problem is it's constrained by a 1979 law that says it can't be a certain brightness, so our headlights are not going to be as bright as the European headlights, which is a safety issue. Now the MTA is caught in the same conundrum. You're operating under rules that were written 50 years ago and are not applicable to today. We have global warming, and we have to conserve and convert. And that's being opposed by people who don't understand. They're still operating under the rules of 50 years ago. Well, this morning there was a small change. Metro North has said they're going to paint the red box at Roaring Brook black and white as soon as they can. At least that's the first step in the recognition that what they've been doing wrong for 40 years has to change. Buses can go faster if you make the lines logical. You're operating on the lines that were designed 50 years ago. It's a challenge to let the young thoughts change. You're at a crossroads. It's called global warming. You either solve it or my grandchildren don't get a decent place to live. Thank you all for the time to speak to you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the public comment session.
Thank you to all our public speakers. Some of them are regular speakers, and we do value their continued participation. Our copies of the January 2022 CPOC meeting minutes have been distributed. It's not a question. They have been distributed and are available on the website. Are there any changes or comments to the minutes? Mr. Albert.
The book just became available less than an hour ago, believe it or not, so I haven't had a chance to review the minutes. I'm sorry.
Well, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna, in that case, table the motion to approve them until the next meeting, because I don't want to press the issue if that's the case. Mr. Drew-Geralds, are there any changes to the committee work plan?
No, there are no changes to the committee work plan at this time.
All right, let me turn it over to C&D President Jamie Torres Springer for an update.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. So a few updates for you before we turn to our business unit leaders for Metro North Railroad and Long Island Railroad for updates today. In the committee book, you have our commitments and completion targets for 2022. We have a 2022 target that we've set for $8.1 billion, which is a continued significant increase on our targeted commitments. There's a few highlights in there that there's a few highlights in terms of what we're pushing to get committed, awarded this year. For station accessibility, a continued priority of this capital program, 13 new stations projected to award this year for contracts between 2 packages, that's subway stations, and 7 Long Island Railroad stations. We also have full station renewals planned for contract awards this year, Borough Hall stations, which will include ADA accessibility, 3 stations on the Jamaica line, 6 stations on the Flushing line. We continue to advance the migration to communication-based train control and have the Crosstown line projected for a contract award in 2022. $75 million in small business mentoring program awards, which is an increase over last year. We have the rehabilitation of the lower level main span deck at the Verrazano Bridge, and we're planning early utility work on the 2nd Avenue Subway Phase 2 project, which I'll mention again in a moment. In terms of completions projected for 2022, we have $9.2 billion in projected completions. This includes the CBTC project at Queens Boulevard West, at least 3 more ADA projects, Sandy repairs being completed at a number of sites, both in the subway system and for Metro North, structural repairs at the RFK and Verrazano bridges, and the first phase of reconstructing the approach ramps of the Verrazano Bridge. And of course, planned for this year for completions, we have East Side Access entering into service and the 3rd track project on Long Island entering into service. A few other brief updates on major projects. Penn Station Access is well underway. We're mobilizing our design builder and establishing our systems, our field office in New Rochelle, and we expect that project work will start in the Bronx in the spring. As I mentioned, we're advancing 2nd Avenue Subway Phase 2. I'm sure board members are aware that the federal government enabled us to enter the engineering phase. We are working very closely with the FTA for an expeditious full funding grant agreement, which we hope will come very soon and enable us to move forward very quickly with the project. On the Penn Station reconstruction, we're continuing to plan for next steps, engaging with Amtrak and other stakeholders in support of the governor's vision of a reconstructed Penn Station. And of course, you've heard in the news that we are pushing forward with the Interborough Express planning stage. The goal is to get to a locally preferred alternative and initiate environmental review by the end of the year. We'll be starting community outreach this spring. And we also commenced work on our another effectively mega project, which is the rehabilitation of the Grand Central Terminal train shed this year. Lastly, I'll mention our work on resiliency and addressing extreme weather. We're planning for board committee engagement starting next month. There's been a lot of field work and study that's done that's led to some near-term interventions across dozens of stations that were identified after Ida as being vulnerable. So we'll give you an update about that soon. And then this week at the board, we'll be updating on the track trespass task force recommendations, as well as the 20-year needs assessment that will lead to the next 5-year plan. That's my update.
Board Member Jones?
Yeah, and I think you've actually started talking about it, the track safety issue. Particularly, I recognize there's some significant difficulties with retrofitting many of the stations. But obviously, when a project is just entering design, are we talking about coming up with new systems to prevent track entry in sort of before we get in any further, and of course accessibility at the same issue?
So yeah, let me just make clear something that is important. Jamie's going to have a full report, so that probably is the best time to have some of that discussion. But one important variable that, again, on top of the structural issues that constrain universal application of platform doors, even in theory, is the reality that you need more uniformity of the car fleet in order to make sure that you're placing the platform doors at the right location. So that is the additional constraint on top of the stuff that you've been hearing about from Jamie and his team and from me about platform doors. That said, as you will hear on Wednesday, there are ideas about a variety of different pilots that we could get going in the near term. If there are no further comments, then we'll come back to the agenda. Any other comments from the board members? Both sides of the aisle? Okay, all right. Go for it.
We're all friends here.
Yes, always. Yeah, no, watch your comment. Mr., who's presenting now? We have the capital program update with a focus on the C&D Long Island Railroad and Metro North business units. We'll hear from Andrew Wilson and from LIRR business unit, Andrew Wilson from the LIR business unit, followed by the IEC's report on their progress. Go ahead, Andrew.
Sorry. Good afternoon. I'm Andrew Wilson, acting C&D Long Island Railroad Business Unit Leader. Today I'll be giving you an update on some of our projects. We're working on 116 active projects valued at approximately $3.1 billion. The projects cross all asset categories. Since we last presented, approximately $100 million of contracts were awarded, including the Cherry Valley Road Bridge replacement. This photo demonstrates the need to replace the bridge with one of proper DOT height. Unfortunately, this happens several times a year. In addition, the LIRR business unit awarded over $12 million in small business mentor contracts in the last quarter of 2021. Overall, the LIRR committed $345 million. Although this was below our goal of $484 million, those commitments should roll into 2022. This slide shows several major completions achieved in 2021. Overall, we exceeded our completion goal of 26 with 28 total. This includes the Morris Park Locomotive Shop shown on the slide, which will replace the existing 130-year-old roundhouse, vastly improved maintenance capabilities, and improved locomotive reliability. This slide shows our 2022 third-party commitment goals. I'm happy to report that 5 of these contracts have already started procurement. I wanted to highlight some smaller commitments that will have a positive impact for our customers. These include the Northport Station platform replacement, which will include a new heated platform, railings, ADA ramp, as well as a new canopy, as you can see from the photo. In addition, we plan on awarding a contract to paint both the Merritts Road and Hempstead Turnpike bridges in Farmingdale and rehabilitate canopies at our Freeport and Massapequa Park stations. The ADA Stations Package 1, containing 7 stations, is a major commitment for the Long Island Railroad BU in 2022. Building on the success of other recent ADA station awards, C&D is bundling the stations into a single design-build contract to enable the project team and contractors to gain efficiencies of scale and repetition. The project includes new elevators at locations noted on the slide. Upon completion of this project, only 9 out of 125 stations will remain non-accessible. The construction of new elevators and other accessibility enhancements will make Locust Manor, Laurelton, St. Albans stations ADA accessible for the first time. Providing customers accessibilities at these stations also works to make the Long Island Railroad's Atlantic Ticket even more attractive for Southeast Queens customers. This popular Atlantic Ticket incentive provides a discounted fare for travel along the Atlantic branch between select stations in Southeast Queens and Brooklyn. The aim here is to make Long Island Railroad's service easier to use. Now on to Jamaica. The Jamaica Capacity Improvement Project, JCI as it's known, is a multi-capital program initiative to dramatically increase train throughput or fix the Jamaica crawl within the Jamaica Station, one of the busiest nodes on the railroad's network. The first phase of this project, JCI Phase 1, which is underway now, includes multiple contracts as well as substantial in-house work managed as one integrated project. The work includes a new Platform F to accommodate Brooklyn to Jamaica service, which is also an East Side access readiness requirement. Updates of Phase 1 include completion of Jamaica Track 12 signal cutover and placing Platform F back into service in November to support the new Elmont event service. The overall Phase 1 project remains on budget and is approximately 90% complete. Since the last CPOC presentation, Johnson Yard was fully signalized and interlocked, 21 of 24 switches installed, and major signal equipment was delivered and installed at Beaver Interlocking. In the picture, you see the signal equipment being loaded onto signal platforms that was actually constructed by a small business mentor contractor. The remaining track, third rail, signal infrastructure work will be finished this year. The Beaver Interlocking is forecasted to be fully cut over for service in the second quarter of 2022. JCI Phase 2 is in the final stages of design. Due to the overall complexity of this work, Phase 2 is being strategically staged and phased over multiple capital programs to reduce customer and operational impacts while maintaining necessary routing capabilities for rush hour periods. This multi-program mega project provides for reconfiguration of all track alignments, increased train speeds throughout the Jamaica interlockings, complete state of good repair improvements to railroad infrastructure, improving service reliability, reduction in commuting times of up to 3 minutes, getting our customers where they want to go quicker, and hopefully untying the Jamaica knot. The Hall Interlocking Expansion Project, also known as ER Extension, is now entering the third-party procurement phase. An RFQ is expected to hit the street shortly. Thank you for your time, and unless there's any questions, I will turn the presentation over to Joe Tavito.
Are there any questions for Andrew? Go ahead.
Very happy to hear you mention what sounds like during rush hours through train service or across the platform transfers between tracks 2 and 3 will continue rather than make all of those commuters go up and over to platform F and down to continue their trip to Brooklyn. That would not be a service improvement to commuters, obviously. So to keep the service plan similar to what it is and have either off-peak service from Jamaica to Brooklyn on platform F or, as you mentioned, the special events to Elmont makes perfect sense.
Okay, I think in another time, you probably will want a briefing on how they're using all of this, because I think they're doing a little bit of both. That's my impression. Mr. Brown.
Yeah, it's about the bridge, your graphic with the truck. Did the DOT pick up any of that whack, or that's all on us?
The DOT will review it and approve it, but no, that's our work.
So we pay for the whole thing, even though the truck drivers can't read 12 feet.
Oh, we're talking Cherry Valley, I'm sorry.
Oh, excuse me.
I was getting.
I thought it was referring to.
No, that's our project, that's our bridge.
So only us, DOT didn't give you anything to do that?
That's correct.
Yeah.
It does get struck about 8 times a year.
Yeah, it's obviously our fault for building the bridge too low 150 years ago, and the people that put in the road have no responsibility. I clearly understand.
All right, if the color from Mr. Brown and his colleagues have completed, we'll turn to Mr. DeVito of the IEC.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. The IEC's report on the Jamaica Capacity Improvements Phase 1 can be found on page 13 of your committee book. Overall, the project is 90% complete, on budget at $301 million, but has experienced an additional delay since our last report. The project completion continues to depend on the availability of switch and signal force account resources and track outages. The project team has done all preparatory work and is poised to take advantage of any opportunities, should they arise, to achieve beneficial use in the fourth quarter of 2022. Regarding the budget, based on our analysis of the completed work, change orders, TA labor, and other cost categories, the IEC finds there are challenges which could add to the project cost. Our top cost and schedule risks are an active claim by the Platform F contractor and outstanding force account work at Union Interlocking. There are mitigation measures for these risks, which are outlined in our report in the book. The IEC has one program-wide observation they'd like to make, and that is that force account and signal resources are not aligned with the staffing level needed to execute the volume of upcoming capital program work as planned. And that concludes the IEC comments. Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for the IEC? Okay, hearing none. I think at this point I would call on Ziona Rubin to present the C&D Metro North Business Unit update, followed again by the IEC comments. Ziona?
Good afternoon. My name is Ziona Rubin, and I'm the Acting Metro North Business Unit Lead at MTA Construction and Development. Can you hear me? All right. On the left, you can see a list of all project disciplines that Metro North Business Unit is responsible for. We currently have 30 active construction projects with a total budget of $1.75 billion. The pie chart on the right shows the distribution of these three projects among these disciplines. In 2021, we committed 99% of our goal, totaling $768.2 million. Since the last CPC meeting in September, we awarded 17 contracts. Listed on the left are the 10 design contracts totaling $75 million, and on the right, the business unit construction project totaling $19.3 billion. And these are the third-party costs. In 2021, we reached substantial completion on 21 contracts, a total of $525.3 million. As you can see on the top table, construction and design contracts reached 70% and 89% respectively in comparison to our completion goals. The lower table depicts selected contracts. I would like to point out a few. The Customer Service Initiative for Station, $85 million, which was completed on time and under budget. The replacement of 3rd, 6th, and 10th Avenue bridges in Mount Vernon, which were completed on time and on budget. In 2022, we intend to commit $668.1 million in new projects, some of which are listed below. The pie chart on the right depicts their categories. 20% of construction, 5% in design, 5% in force account, 2% in rolling stock, in administrative, and 68% in rolling stock. I would like to highlight a few important state of good repair projects that we planned for 2022. The priority repairs to 18 stations located on the Upper Hudson and Upper Harlem, $31 million value. This project will repair the deteriorated platform edges and their substructure. The replacement of Fulton Avenue and South Street Avenue bridges in Mount Vernon, $46.7 million. This project will replace the last two overhead bridges owned by Metro North in the city. And the replacement of the DC substation in Pelham, New York, located on the New Haven line, $29.7 million. The existing substation has passed its useful life and is critical for service between Mount Vernon and New Haven. Now I would like to highlight several of the business unit projects. The Croton Harmon Yard is where we repair, maintain, clean, and service our fleet. Stage 2 of Phase 5 is the last project to replace the old main shop responsible for repairing and servicing our fleet. The picture on the top right shows the old building. Below are renderings of the proposed new main shop. On the left, you can see our completed consist shop facility where we service 2 10-car consists. This project is on time and on budget. We completed the construction of the building foundation, and now we are building the envelope, walls, utilities, and are working on the factory acceptance tests for the maintenance machinery. We are also replacing the tracks in the north yard. This work was delayed due to damaged yard components. However, this delay is mitigated thanks to collaboration between Metro North user groups and C&D to work during a standing stop work order. The Park Avenue Viaduct is a critical structure that carries trains converging from the Hudson, Harlem, and the New Haven lines into and out of Grand Central Terminal. The structure is undergoing interim retrofit to install brackets under the fascia girders. This is done between 115 and 123rd Street and 128 to 132nd Streets in Manhattan. This project is on budget and ahead of schedule. You can see a picture of those brackets at the left side. The Metro-North Business Unit also commenced with the preliminary engineering of the complete replacement of the viaduct between 115th and 132nd Street. This contract also provides program management and construction supervision and inspection services, and it was awarded in December 2021. Multiple efforts are ongoing to progress the NEPA, the real estate, public outreach. This picture depicts a proposed method to replace the structure utilizing a self-propelled modular transporter. The Hudson and Harlem Common Signal improvements. These two signal and comm projects include the procurement, installation, and testing of communication and signal express cables and associate enclosures, consisting of fiber optic, copper, and signal power, which exceeded their useful life. Communication infrastructure is required for PTC, public address, ticket vending machines, and security system along the Harlem line and the Upper Hudson line. We reported last September that these projects were handed over to C&D. The Hudson Line project challenges include subsurface rock obstruction delaying the plowing. Both projects witnessed difficult access and operational constraints stemming from long blocks in a two-track territory. We have been assessing the performance of these projects to determine the best economical path forward toward completion. We intend to implement these lessons learned into future capital projects. We reported that the projects were over budget and behind schedule. Our evaluation for the forecasted funding needs, a total of $90.6 million, and substantial completion are displayed on these tables. To mitigate these effects, we are working collaboratively with Metro-North Maintenance of Way and Transportation to improve work windows and the necessary support. This month, we're requesting board approval for several change orders, which are included in these forecasts. We anticipate submitting additional change orders in the near future. This culvert, located at Dobbs Ferry, was washed out during Hurricane Ida on September 2nd, 2021. It supported 4 tracks of the Hudson Line, which was shut down. Utilizing an ultra-fast design build and full collaboration with Metro-North Track, Power, Signal, and Transportation, we were able to complete its replacement in a record of 5 months. The top picture shows the gap under the tracks after the washout, behind the abutments. The bottom pictures depict the completed structure on the right and the 4th track deck pour on the left. Thank you.
Board Member Zuckerman.
Thank you, sir. Zion, I just want to use the presentation as a moment to just highlight some important things going on in that, which may not be obvious to everyone. There are 3 types of projects happening in there that I think show there are maybe 3 different kinds of constituencies. We have the first, which is, for my case, a very parochial one. You're going to fix the little garrison station, and I appreciate that, and we've spent a lot of time on talking about it because falling concrete and, corroded copper is not what we like to commute on. We like smoothness and no falling, and I think your plan is a clean and smart one. Then there's a second project which benefits everybody, which is the Park Avenue Viaduct, which is essential to do. And it's a major project, and we're not going to see it. It's going to happen underground, but it's so important because that is the bottleneck for all the trains to go through, with the exception, of course, of the eventual new access to Penn Station. And the third one is what's been happening at Harmon Shops. Now, I look at Norman for a second here because we're spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to fix an ancient building. I mean literally ancient, not antique, ancient. And I'm hoping the employees have a better environment in which to work. that they can feel more comfortable, safer, happier, and frankly, just more satisfied in their day jobs. Norm, I don't know if you have a view on that about whether that physical improvements over the years will make for a better environment to do one's job.
Well, I mean, there's a certain obviousness about that, but the thing is, well, it's also, too, the stark difference between the two facilities. I mean, you go in a new facility, I mean, it's shocking for me, having worked in very, very dirty environments, to see how nice and clean that is. I encourage Metro North staff to, like, bulk up on the station cleaners, and, because it's really keeping it clean is as important as having it clean, and is a beautiful facility. I'm curious about the equipment that's still outstanding, though. You say you're still doing first article testing on the, I mean, it's also, too, the equipment's much different. My experience is it doesn't necessarily mean it's better, but it's certainly cleaner and newer. But where are you at with what's missing first article testing?
Can I just have her hold off on answering? Let me just finish my
I'm
comment.
sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I just want to.
That's what happens when you ask for it.
No, it's a good one. I raise it only because I think most of our conversations that are between labor and management are around price and work rules and do more, and I don't think we talk about some of the things that I think management tries to do, and the rider doesn't see that spend. Those of us Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess who go down the Hudson line, yeah, you see these huge buildings, you're like, okay, there's some huge buildings. So the riding public doesn't see that spend, but I just want to identify that that's a good opportunity, good moment of investment in the workforce that I don't think we all talk about that much. You can go ahead with the questions, but I just want to raise that point.
No, I don't really have much more. I am curious about the first article testing.
Yes, so the remaining factory acceptance tests are for the remaining 6 rail car hoists that are actually manufactured overseas. Yeah. I'm sorry. The remaining factory acceptance tests are for the remaining 6 rail car hoists. Yes.
And if I may, board member, I'll just mention that I was with Ziona inspecting the work at the Harmon shop a few weeks ago, and it is a truly impressive modern facility. And I would just add that a lot of care and attention has been paid, exactly to your point, about employee lunchrooms, locker rooms, other outdoor facilities. It is a very impressive facility that I think will serve our staff very well for a long time.
And hopefully, in the absence of other questions or comments, Mr. DeVito for the IEC.
Thank you. Just want to make a quick off-the-cuff comment with regard to this discussion that we just had, having run shops in the Northeast for my former employer. There's a very high morale boost when you get a shop like this going into service, in addition to the effective and efficient use of their labor in that place. So that's information. So, thank you. The IEC report on Harmon Phase 5, Stage 2 begins on page 22 of your CPOC book. Overall, the project is 56% complete, on budget at $439.6 million, but has experienced a minor schedule slip. With respect to the budget, the IEC's review of the project expenditures, executed and potential change orders, and other cost categories find that it indicates that the project will remain within its original budget. Regarding schedule, since the last report, there has been a 7-week critical path delay due to the late site access as a result of the subsequent repair of damaged yard track components mentioned by Ziona earlier. The project is working with the contractor to recover this time through increasing shifts and crews. In view of these actions, the IEC has confidence in this project finishing on time and on budget. The top risks include testing and commissioning of the new shop equipment, which we're experiencing, unknown underground utilities, and potential soil remediation issues that may not be resolved. Mitigation measures are outlined in our full report in the committee book. The IEC has one noteworthy observation, that a cooperative effort between Metro North operations and the C&D project team has averted a significant delay by relaxing a work restriction in the North Yard, which allows the project work to continue on time. And that concludes my comments.
All right, I'm going to take executive privilege just to highlight what that means, which is that this was one of those projects that was handed over from maintenance of way operation at Metro North to the new C&D team. They encountered some real complexities. This was happening before Jamie got on board, so I will resist the urge to implicate him in any way. It's all on me. But the point was that they found a way out of the delay by changing the rules about where work could be done and when and on what terms. So that's kind of what every project needs to do. It was particularly acute in this case because there was a lot of schedule risk due to those impacts. Okay. At this point, I want questions.
Yeah, Randy.
Please, Randy.
Two questions.
Please.
Yeah, one of our new members on the Metro North Railroad Community Council uses Grand Central. He wanted to know about North End access. He says right now it's operating with pretty constrained hours. It looks like there's substantial construction going on. Is there a timetable for restoring the full day service? Is there any kind of informal communications between the committee and the staff, Metro North staff, about this? That's the first question.
I think that's I didn't know we turned the committee meeting into Dear Abby, but here we go. I'm going to answer one question. Then, if you have other questions from folks, maybe just
no. That's it.
Yeah,
that's the one.
But I think the answer is we have to talk to Metro North operating folks about it. There is some work going on in that zone for East Side access. As you know, there are exits from into the North End access for East Side access, but I'm not certain if those are the impacts, what's causing the impact to the hours of operation. Let's get back to you so that you can convey the information on, okay? In the absence of any
concern about the work on the Park Avenue and how it affects CP1 interlocking. That's something we should get a report on too. Thank you.
Okay, well, the train shed work is much more complicated, and we should have a separate discussion about that with the right group at the right time. All right, I'm just moving us along. Mr. Iceland, are you going to report on procurements?
I am, Mr. Chairman. We have 8 procurement actions this month totaling $18 million. They're all ratifications. These items are the changes to the M&R Hudson and Harlem Line communications and signal system improvement contracts that Ziona just mentioned. There are 6 for the Hudson Line contract totaling $15.3 million. There are 2 for the Hudson Line, 2 for the Harlem Line contract totaling $2.7 million. They address added work and schedule impacts. They're further described in the staff summaries contained in your books, and I submit these items for your consideration and vote.
Any questions or comments about any of the procurement items that are on the table? I'll make a motion. Oh, no, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any second? Thank you, Rhonda. Any opposition? Any abstentions? The items carry. That concludes our agenda unless any of the board members wish to add anything else. At this time, I'll call for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, everybody.